You know the garage metaphor? Did we talk about this ever?
No.
All right, so if I had to talk about therapy, where I think a lot of people do 3 days of therapy and then they're like, fuck it, I'm done. Right? Like after they go through all those barriers that we talked about to actually get in.
Yeah.
Right? And even if it's like the right type of therapy, even if the therapist is actually a good relationship, I've still seen people be like, well, nah, fuck it, I'm done. Right? And it's like, I just heard this metaphor, like therapy is like cleaning out your garage. And you spend the first, and I don't know, I would always like do this shit over like days, right? You spend the first portion of that just taking all these boxes off the shelves and this bag of leaves that somehow is in there with a mouse in it.
In the boxes.
And then you're taking them off and you're putting them in the driveway, right? And then as you go deeper and deeper, you're like, I don't even know what that is. First of all, don't know why I need it. Don't know who put it there.
Yeah.
Maybe I did.
Yeah.
Right? And okay, I'm taking it. I gotta take it out. I gotta take it out. I gotta take it out. And then you just have all this shit sitting on like in your yard, and it looks so much worse than when you started. Right? It looks so much worse. Then you got to go back in, clean the whole empty garage.
Yeah.
And then figure out, okay, now I'm gonna go back to this random pile of bullshit that feels embarrassing, and it's all this stuff, and I don't know what it is.
And now your neighbors see it.
And then my neighbors see it, and everybody can tell I'm a little bit of a mess right now.
Yeah.
And I have to figure out, okay, well, what do I keep? And how do I put it back? Because if I just fling it back in there, I'm just gonna have to clean the garage again, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, how am I gonna organize this? How am I going to put it back? What do I keep? What do I throw away? And where am I wrong about those things?
Yeah.
Right? Because like I am going to make mistakes as I'm putting everything back in the garage.
You're supposed to make mistakes.
Yeah.
Mental Health Monday.
Anyway, where the fuck were we? Yeah. Do you think there's a difference in your approach to therapy for someone who's been forced into therapy?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess when I feel like I'm coming in now, I have more of a, and also, you know, now because I'm also paying for it, that probably is part of it too. You know,
when you weren't paying for it, it wasn't a
the
thought,
Obamacare, the health insurance
for it,
on your
like,
parents till you're 26,
this is
whatever.
A bit different, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, even actually before then, I guess when I was coming in, I was like sometimes bringing real stuff and trying to like do the work like you talk about, but also just coming in and just like being like, all right, I just have to fill this fucking hour, and like once I fill the hour and I'm done, and then also just when I was like not engaging with it on that choice basis where it really felt like it was like my thing, and I'm finding my own therapist, like it was something that I only ever thought about during that like 1 hour a week, right? And like the more and more I've been in it, and also in it for myself, it's like, okay, that 1 hour is kind of just like it's like the fucking huddle, right? It's the huddle, and then the rest of your week is going out there and running the play. And just because you have a good understanding of the playbook and the huddle, like, I don't know, you go out and you get on the line and maybe there's motion, maybe you feel like you tweaked your leg, like whatever, like running the play is actually the work. And sure, they both mutually inform each other, right? Whatever happens on the play informs your next huddle, and the huddle obviously informs the play. But when I wasn't getting into it from that real place of like intrinsic motivation, I was just fucking half-assing the huddle and like blindly running the play. Like just, I don't know, not paying attention at all, not thinking about being, okay, so what did we talk about and how can I use this, and actually seeing it as a time to practice like this plan that I had developed. And yeah, so I mean, forced in, it was also just because I was like, I don't know, I was like,
did you really develop the plan though? And the reason I ask this is, if you force me to do something, chances are I'm not going to do the best version of it.
Yeah.
Right? And that's why when you told me you were told this is the rules you have to go to, what age were you when that was said to you?
What was I? seventh grade, so like 12 years
seventh
old.
Grade.
And then I was out of therapy for a few years, like took breaks.
Anyway, you were like into I'm about to rebel against everything. So like, I don't know if saying that to someone in seventh grade or a child. I mean, parents don't know better. Mm-hmm. We understand parents don't know better, right? But in understanding parents don't know better, I think we've also come to understand that like them not understanding what they're doing or knowing what they're doing has made us who we are.
Yeah.
In a certain sense, on certain levels. Yeah. Not everything, but like there's a certain amount of, I shouldn't do that, does it immediately. I put in way more effort there than I would have anything else. If you could have done it again, do you think you would have done therapy at such an early age? Or would you have rather appreciated a moment to figure out who you might be at that time?
Yeah, I mean, like if I could do it again, like I would just be a completely different person now. Yeah. You know, so like I get that this is a hypothetical.
Yeah.
I guess if I could do it again, I wish I was surrounded by more like micro, which is I don't know, like family and school, meso like town, and then like macro like big societal structures that were more conducive to like having that door feel like it was open and that I could just like walk through it. Yeah, I mean, like very much
approach matters.
Yeah, like it felt like a punishment thing. I think at the beginning, because I was just like beefing with like my parents and like getting in trouble at school, and so it felt like, okay, so now you have this, you have to go see this therapist. Yeah. And like he's the man. You know what I'm saying? He's the man. And I'm cool. Right? So like I don't care about the man. The
man, I don't care about. Okay? I just want to let everybody know that across the board. This is where I'm at with it.
I'm 12, I'm the shit, and that's the man. Everything associated with this is the man. And like I don't want to have to deal with that. So yeah, just like, I mean, if you feed somebody bullshit, and if you, I don't know, you bullshit in, bullshit out kind of deal. And because I just like was so averse to it and felt like it was imposed, it was almost like a mission to be like, well, no, I'm also like not going to let you know me. Like, yeah, sometime, and it's not like I like never took it seriously at all. Like, but yeah, I also only would talk about the things that like, I was like, you know what, this is my clean little sanitized version that I finally, whatever, I'll bring this. Bullshit in, bullshit out.
Do you think bringing the clean sandbox, he was just like, we're not getting anywhere with this?
Definitely.
Yeah. And how long? Yeah. Well, you were 12 years of therapy. I know that much, right? And when you said that, when we did the sit down and you said, I was in therapy for 12 years, I don't inquire about whether anyone's in therapy or not, right? Yeah. So our approach at Get Home Safe has always been, hey, you should get therapy if you would like therapy. If you would like therapy, here are these black therapists that I work with directly, and they're great people who I know personally. If they're not a good fit for you, that's fine. Go through your insurance and call to see if you're able to get therapy and figure out what platforms do they allow you to reach out to find a therapist who's a fit for you. If you don't want therapy, I have all these people that do wellness stuff. If that's how you want to go about figuring things out for yourself and figuring what works for you. Now, going to therapy and getting wellness doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. But my question to you is, are you willing to work towards a better quality of life for yourself? You don't really figure those things out until you've tried something. And then when you no longer have that thing, that's when you realize, oh, actually, this worked here, here, and here. That's why I needed that.
Yeah. And I don't know, hearing you talk about like, okay, so like you're like, okay, these are the resources, right? I can hook you up with a therapist that shares salient and important aspects of your identity.
Hopefully. And
yeah, sure, right? There's, I mean, obviously problems with that, right? But that's the goal. And even when, I imagine when you can do all of that, there's still just like okay, well, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. And That's why, I don't know, it's always a weird part, especially, I don't know, as I'm like working with kids and teaching kids and trying to get kids, you can't tell somebody that they have to do it.
Yeah.
But there are some people that really should fucking do it.
There are.
But so it's just like you have to have that conversation with them, and really it's like the amalgamation of many conversations of them seeing like your habits of being, that you're actually coming from a place of care.
You have to lose to want to win.
Yeah. What do you mean?
You do.
You mean we're just like whatever?
No. Most great athletes or most stories of triumph have come from people realizing they didn't have enough. Whether it was the resources, whether it was I didn't put the time I needed to build my body up, whether it was we should have put more time towards the game plan and understanding who the enemy is and what their weaknesses was versus us thinking we're good enough, we got this when we show up.
Yeah.
And that's, in general, that's how life is. And I don't like using too many athlete examples, but like my life has been athletic.
Education is metaphor also, like, well, I guess there is kind of, I think I felt some of that too, like what kind of, why I got back in was...
To therapy?
Yeah, like so stumbling on my ass. You were
just like, nah,
exactly, right?
I'm
exactly.
Good. And then did life tell you that you weren't good, or
eventually, things started to stack, and then I was like,
you gotta give me an example.
Oh man.
Yeah, you gotta.
When was it?
Even if it's like a general example.
Yeah, so I guess
I want people to recognize what stacking looks like.
Yeah, so I mean, I was kind of like on and off in college, like through our CAPS program or whatever, with like a whole bunch of different therapists who were always like, and they were overworked and also just like didn't really have connections with them. And so kind of after that experience graduated and I was like, all right, you know what? Like I am good. I'm done.
Yeah.
And it was kind of my first, I guess, I could give you an example. So I started like this like joint fellowship where I was like teaching and getting my master's at the same time. And I'm in this insular, one of like the richest private schools in the country, completely on campus.
Yeah.
And up in New Hampshire. And like I like grew up around white people. I grew up in New Hampshire. It's not new. That stress of new place, new job, community that I don't quite have the sociocultural capital necessary to navigate. A breakup, the existential crisis of, oh man, now wait, I felt like I kind of just even like stumbled into this program. Like, and I'm glad, gave me a job, helped me get a master's. Like what?
Lucky to be there.
Yeah, definitely. And there was also like that imposter thing going on too. Like maybe who the hell let me into this function, right? Maybe I should have put up a fight, kind of deal.
No, I got you.
You know?
Yeah.
So it was like all these like things that like I would stress and almost even like cycle between like be like, okay, like maladaptive avoidance is something that like I really do, where I'm just like, all right, I'm just not going to think about this. So like this stress of like the new job, I'm just not going to think about that. And then I would just cycle to like obsessively kind of like running through, okay, this is how I felt wronged, or this is why this isn't right for me, or this situation
really is
talking
bad. To anybody about that. You were just having inner conversations with yourself.
Yeah, completely. And and then I think I mentioned like a breakup from college too.
Does that develop something toxic in you?
Oh yeah, and it started to like come out in like a toxic way too, either like snapping at people, or just like being way too quick if somebody's like trying to throw hands and being like,
fuck it.
Hands I have.
Hands I will serve.
Ask and you shall receive.
Yeah.
Or just like, I don't know, even in like the classroom, just like being too quick to like, just not remember that sometimes these kids are like, they're 14.
Yeah.
They're 15. It's really hard to be like 15 years old, right? And so just expecting them, I don't know, I would even catch myself like being short with like students.
For no reason.
Yeah, right. And then finally, I guess there was kind of like the somatic connection too. Like I got shingles. And then like as all this stuff
like
is stacking up, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like in the doctor, and they're like, okay, well, you're way too stressed because this, and they're looking at the case and like my medical history, and they're like, none of this makes sense. And you know, I'm sure they used more doctorly diction, but like, unless you're a goddamn mess right now, like that's the only thing that really makes this wild case of shingles make sense.
So you stressed your way into shingles?
Yeah, which is a thing.
You gotta explain that to me.
I mean, I don't know like the biochemistry.
I mean,
of it.
from what you understood, from what they said.
Yeah, so I mean, basically, like, I mean, when you're stressed, when you're dealing with a lot of anxiety, like anxiety actually can have a like biologically important function, right? Because it's like, all right, like if we never got anxious about shit, we probably would never get up and do stuff.
Yeah.
Right? Like sometimes
you need anxiety.
Exactly, right? There's an adaptive place for anxiety. It's not that we should never feel that feeling, but it's just like, okay, the same thing that is, I don't know, I think like a spider web can be a home or it can be a trap, right? And it's the same thing, but depending on your relationship with this thing, you have a wildly different like outcome from that relationship. So like, yeah, when you're stressed, when you're going through like a lot of like anxiety, I mean, probably like depression going on too, like, I mean, your brain literally is like, it's creating like cortisol. Like there are all these hormones associated with anxiety and with depression that also have spillover effects. Like I've had like sleep problems for a really long time. And, you know, and then if you're not sleeping well and then you're tired, like, and then your body isn't recovering.
It starts to break down.
Right. And then even that stacking continues. So there's literal, like, there's like a biological like response to anxiety and stress.
You had mental stacking, and then what happened was your body followed that condition and you started to have physical stacking.
Which in turn fed back into the mental stacking.
Yeah.
Which in turn, and you see where this is going.
It was just
right? Exactly. Yeah. You see where this is going. And
the snake that eats its tail.
Yeah, right? And there's so that was kind of the point at which I was like, okay. I don't like feeling like this. I really don't.
Yeah.
And like just being able to like think through options. I think it would have been easier too if, you know, I had like knew more about what options were available to me or like what kinds of resources existed, or even just like that there are like different types of therapy. Like I know that there are like, this was 2018, 17.
Okay.
So I had been kind of like on and off, but didn't really feel like I was like serious in it and doing it on my own until then, even knowing that there's like different kinds, and that was kind of the impetus for being like, all right, like let me sign myself up again.
That's a hard process.
Yeah, it sucked.
That's a hard process. I remember
it wasn't fun.
I remember the inpatient form that you have to fill out for therapy.
Yeah.
And it gets really heavy when you got to write down the reason that you're there for therapy, man.
Yeah. There's even a degree you're like, well, if I really understood it, I wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
Back to that,
can I just put a question mark?
Right.
Like, can we figure this out together? Like, are you allowed to write, I'm just here to talk, as like the reason that you're there for therapy? Like, I sometimes wonder about that stuff.
I mean, you definitely are, and I do remember times like when I had just been like exceedingly vague about it, because that's something I would do even with actually my current therapist, who like I really mess with and really trust. Great guy.
Yeah.
But like I was cagey and vague as hell coming in, because I was like, I don't know what you're gonna do with this information. So
what does cagey mean?
Just like, I guess the etymology is like, I don't know, like a caged animal almost, that's like really skittish in any kind of sound or light, like retreating into corners and snapping at anything that
when they
like,
get a little bit too close to the truth, you're like, nah, fuck that.
And then like a very like snap back reaction, like I'm not letting anybody near, and anything that comes near I'm gonna handle.
You don't get to touch this.
Yeah, like I'm gonna handle. And so just kind of like, I don't know, came in, I forget, I lost my train of thought.
You were feral.
Yeah.
You know, you were feral. Like when you were sitting down with your therapist that works now, you were very like, hey,
so you
I'm here to get help, but you don't get to help me.
You can just be like, I just want to talk, right? As you're coming in and you're doing the intakes, and it's like, I just want to talk. Absolutely, that's an option. And I think there's a lot of really valid reasons, especially if people have different like traumas with like family or therapists or just like American society at large, where they're like, wow, anything that I say can and will be used against me. And so I don't know, it's just like, I encourage people to like, if that's really how you're feeling, right? Then maybe that's what you have to do, right? A coping mechanism, all coping mechanisms we develop because they were adaptive at a time, they become maladaptive over time.
Yeah.
Most of them do.
So that's something that you've witnessed.
Yeah. And also if you're more specific when you're coming in about what you actually need help with, and it could be like, it's weird. I want to say like, it shouldn't be embarrassing. I'm like, okay, well you have this HIPAA-bound doctor. I don't really think there's like a rational backing to my like, oh, well, like saying this stuff about me is like embarrassing. And it was more just like this learned behavior of like asking for help is something you shouldn't do, right? And that's a thought pattern that I had like drilled into me and then continued to drill into myself.
Do you think that was because help was forced onto you?
Yeah, and it would like help often too, right? Where I'm like, this is
open and close quotations. Now I think that's important. That's why, like you tell me that, I'm like, what,
dude? It's not help. Yeah.
I think what's important, and I don't know if you ever got to have this convo with your mom, but like, did you ever ask her what she meant by this is the rule? Like, what the hell do you mean this is the rule for me to go to therapy?
It's weird. Even now, like today, there's like still like I have a complicated relationship with that, and I don't know if I'm ever gonna have kids, but it does make me wonder. Like, kids often don't want to do shit.
Yeah.
Especially new stuff.
Yeah.
Especially adolescence. I want to hang out with my friends.
Yeah.
I don't want to have to do my schoolwork, and I want to feel cool.
Yeah.
Right. Like kind of primary motivators for young adolescents.
Yeah. Feel cool. Have fun.
Right. And so even like I don't know, there were some things like she's like in this house, like you have to learn how to play an instrument. Like our public school was like, okay, it's like they were like whatever. It's like super cheap. You can learn an instrument. You pick an instrument.
Yeah.
And would have never done it. Right. Would have never got involved. Okay. Well, in this house, everybody has to play an instrument. And then I think because that one felt healthy, there was an element of like, yeah, it was like you have to do this, and it's a rule. And I resisted it so much at the time. Yeah. Now I'm really thankful that was a rule, and like also found so much out about music and my relationship with music and how music helped me build relationships with other people over the years that I'm like, wow, thank God that I didn't listen to young James full of angst and like, right, like.
But that rule doesn't
there was
work
choice within that, whereas like, okay, I think like the therapy, like if you're gonna put that kind of rule on, like if you have kids or something, like there's gotta be this element of choice so that they can find agency in it, so that they can find there's no intrinsic motivation without choice. Yeah. Right? Okay, I could choose, whatever, I have to do this, choose my instrument, actually got into it, it led to an instrument, which led to another, which, right, nobody never knows their path, but it's like...
Yeah. Your ponytail touching that piece of art is hilarious every time. That thing's just been swinging. You're good. You're good. That thing's just been hilarious. Like it's just done like 5 like swing sets. I'm like,
it's an allegory for my basic state of mind at any given moment.
Cause swinging any time.
Oh, he's almost gonna fall. No, but we working, you know.
Do you think making that rule of you have to though didn't work well across the board? Because there's things that you can find positive in it, and things that it's kind of like you should have created space for me to negotiate if I wanted this or why I needed this.
Any like
even if I didn't see the value now, there was never a discussion.
Yeah. And so, you know, like, I don't know, things about like music. If you can like where and when you can build in choice, you should always do that. Yeah. Like I'm not gonna, I can wax poetic about like my thesis for forever, but actually I wrote my thesis on what happens when I promote student voice, which is really just ownership of their own community, right? It looks like letting kids, not just letting them, but like helping them design their own assessments, their own learning objectives. Like, how will I prove what I've learned, right? I don't want to take a test. Great. Yeah, I have these 3 options. Oh, you don't like any of those? Okay, now you have to come up with another one with me. But just the more and more you can build in choice, the more you can actually how people develop like intrinsic motivation. Yeah. And you kind of, I don't know, as I was doing this, and like kind of what led me into therapy too, like what feels like productive therapy, where like I feel engaged, I feel like it's engaging me, and I feel like I'm doing work that I see benefits of, is when I was like, oh, wait a second, I can talk about this all theoretically and for other people and study all this, and like, what if I did this for myself? What does building in choice for myself look like? And you need resources, right? You need people like when you're like, oh wait, you actually don't have to do this, you can do this. And right, if it's an unknown, somebody's got to show you the door, right? So even just like talking to people who know about the system better can really be an effective way in. But even like when I was like, oh wait, there were different kinds of therapy. I fucking hate cognitive behavioral therapy. Yeah. And I'll use it as like a linguistic challenge to talk circles around my therapist at any opportunity that I'm presented with. Right? Like all of a sudden it becomes like I make it a versus thing. And like we'll pretend that I'm not doing that, and then be like, this is like this idiot, like. And even internally, when I'm like, even the whole idea of like cognitive behavioral therapy, where it's like it's obviously really focused on like challenging thoughts. And I'm like, listen, I know there's no rational basis for this thought that I have, and I can scream into the void this challenging thought all I want, and I can recognize that that's the healthier thing to do, and it doesn't help me. Yeah. And just like part of it's knowing yourself. So even like and like very much having earlier been involved in like cognitive behavioral therapy, and then being like, oh wait, there's different kinds of therapy. So like these, I don't know, I think a lot of people actually have negative experiences with therapy their first time in.
I think so.
Right? I mean, you've probably seen that, right?
I have. No, I have.
Yeah, it's like kind of just close. Like, it's kind of like, I bet the first day after, you went to the gym, I bet that sucks too. Oh, yeah. Right? And it's like, it's gonna suck in the beginning, which is like a hard thing to tell people. Like, you don't want it, like, you want to tell somebody it's not, right? Like, you want to tell somebody, no, it's like, it's cool, it always gets better. And it's like, I don't know. There is an adaptive thing about leading into that struggle, and at least like going through that and being like, okay, I know what doesn't work for me. And even if you are not at that point where you're like, well, okay, I do know what works. Like I found out for me, like dialectic behavioral therapy, like DBT, much more suited. I'll be a lot less like
irritated.
It's all about like holding the same idea, two contrasting ideas in the same hand, rather than having one idea beat another. Like it's because the framework of CBT, at least the way I experienced it, was like CBT. Almost CBT, like was like
define it.
Oh, cognitive behavioral therapy.
Yeah, I knew that. Just
we gotta like the framework of that was so much more. There's a inherent versus framework in the type of therapy it is, right? It's all about challenging ideas. And so that wasn't going to work for me. It works for a lot of people. I needed somebody that was like, all right, we don't have to have these black or white answers. Yeah. We have to hold that together. And these ostensibly like contrasting ideas, there's room for these to be true. Like how do you accept these two potentially clashing truths and then hold it and then move on. And then I don't even know all the other kinds of therapy.
No, you're good.
I remember looking up the list once as I was trying to get one of my kids in. I know but like
if you look up the list, you will be lost.
I was like, this is crazy. Right? Like and even that, but there could be like choice paradox too, but just having somebody who like is walking you through it, and also I think having somebody to like talk about, you not even talk about the content of like a therapy session, but I know a lot of people that go to 3 therapy sessions
in a month,
or like just like total, and then they're like, it's not for me.
Yeah,
I'm done.
Yeah,
and you're like, okay,
you tried.
Yeah, and that's good. Like maybe it was the same experience that I was having, where it's like, oh, that wasn't the type of therapy that was gonna work for you.
Yeah, that was never gonna be my vibe.
Right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's another pathway in, and even having people to like talk about it with who aren't the therapist, I think helps too. Where you don't have to like whatever go spill your soul, but like. Oh, like how did it go? I don't really.
I don't know what to tell you, man. I know I talked. I know. I had a chat.
Like it,
yeah. Just the way if I gotta feel like this every time I go, I don't know.
It was awkward.
Yeah, and that person is supposed to keep all that to themselves.
Right?
Yeah.
So you gotta find like, I don't know, and sometimes it means it sucks for a while.
Yeah. How long, what was the longest period of damn, this sucks for you?
Good question. Probably like 6 months, but I also, as a self-protective avoidance method, like I was just like, I knew I was phoning it in.
Yeah.
But I was also like, well, as long as I do this, I can pretend like I'm healthy. And like looking back now, I do think there was a part of me that like knew I was doing that at the time too.
Are you a risky personality?
Yeah. Impulsive is another word for it. I don't know. Always kind of have them like a, like shoot first.
Ask questions later.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I'm not just talking about like interpersonal conflict. I know that's how the phrase like frames it, but like I'm much more of like a send it. Like, I don't know. Send it person.
Well, what did you guys expect?
So yeah, probably about 6 months of like, I think I do, and it's hard because I can't put myself back in those exact shoes. But yeah, I think I knew I was phoning it in. I think I knew I wasn't really engaging authentically. I also think it wasn't the kind of space and the kind of therapist where I could have engaged authentically and actually got something that felt really like adaptive and useful to me.
Yeah.
Like coming out of it. And so I think also I was like, cool, well, all this other stuff I'm doing right now, like, at least I'm in therapy. You know what I'm saying? Like, no, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good. Right? It's like this desperate, like self-reassuring, like, no, I'm fine.
Yeah.
Like as if I could just tell myself that enough times and then have it like be true.
Yeah. And then you realize the more you yell it, the more you're forcing it. Actually, the more you're not fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, 6 months. For phoning it in and not getting anything useful. That was CBT also, cognitive behavioral therapy.
What broke the ice for you where you're like, oh, this isn't going to work. I'm going in the wrong direction quickly.
It was kind of just like time. Like I like changed spots. And because I changed spots, didn't see that therapist anymore.
Yeah.
I know I can't really do like the whole virtual therapy something too. I need someone. I'm like, I don't trust these companies out there with my video data. I don't know where that's going.
When they
for real though, I don't know.
About BetterHelp and a couple of these other companies and how like they are not protecting people's personal information, personal private information or anything else. I've always wondered when it came to the virtual side of things, is HIPAA involved or is this just an app that you're trusting?
There is all this stuff that HIPAA can't even really account for yet, where it's like, okay, what if we have an AI extract the conceptual foundations of this, depersonalize it, toss it in a data set with thousands of other people's depersonalized data.
And it's like,
no language, well, it's still going in there, right? Just because it's not a video and it's not a recording of your voice, it's like, there's not even legislation that even exists in HIPAA to account for that yet, so I'm just like, all right.
HIPAA is rarely updated.
Yeah, and it needs to be.
Yeah.
Pretty, like now especially.
Yeah, but the people who want to update the HIPAA laws, they're not even updating the right things.
No, they're not even prepared.
Laws that are made now aren't made with the concern of the patient. It's made with the concern of how do we protect these companies.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's dark, but it's like, no, that's the reality.
So also like knowing all those reservations that I have, right?
Yeah.
And like, yeah, I don't trust the government. Right? I don't trust companies. Like,
because they let us down too many times.
Right.
When
like,
you practice letting me down, you're letting me know who you are. We're here now.
So even like that and being like, okay, well, what are my reservations going in? Right? It's got to be in person.
Yeah.
It's got to be in person. Figuring out, okay, honestly, there's aspects like I can't have to explain parts of my identity because then I'm almost like trying to like justify it and then spending so much emotional energy on that and like dealing with the feelings of not being understood that I'm like, guess what? I spent all my fucking therapy points explaining to you who I am, so I can't even get into what I've experienced and how I want to change.
Yeah.
Right? So okay, I got to be in person. I got to have a therapist with whom I don't have to explain the really important parts of my identity. And that can be, maybe it means a therapist still has different aspects of their identity, right? Often it means you share that part. But it's not a requirement, right? Like, doesn't have to be, I don't know, I've had therapists that I was like, wow, we are different in a lot of ways. And like, I also don't feel that burden of explaining these things that I wish you just got so I can focus on the important stuff.
Yeah.
Knowing what I want, knowing I gotta have my identity seen and valued, knowing the type of therapy that works for me and the type that doesn't, knowing how to navigate like the insurance system.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
That's a nightmare in itself.
Yeah. Still sucks. I feel a lot more comfortable with it now. But even the way a lot of it works, like, right, like you have to have a credit card, you have to put that credit card down, they put a hold on the card, then after your insurance claim goes through, they reimburse the card. A whole mess. I don't know. I mean,
it's just uncomfortable.
I know a good amount of people without bank accounts.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like much less a credit card.
To tell them to go get help is like, no.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't even fit what the system is for getting help.
Yeah. Right. So like there are access problems, and that's where like having somebody that, and I feel like it changes. I don't have too great of an understanding of this. I'm sure you do. Like, I feel like it changes locally a good degree, right?
So I have a couple of therapists that are certified for DC. Some are certified for Virginia, and others that are certified for Maryland. And they all tell me across the board.
Yeah, there's not like reciprocity between the DMV.
Yeah, no, not at all. And I mean, the reason for that is HIPAA laws keep everything separate. So during the pandemic, I don't know if you remember, but anybody could have gotten a therapist in any state that they wanted. And then when the pandemic was over, it's like, no, you could now only get a therapist within the state that you live.
No way.
Yeah, that's what it changed to. So there's certain people who they found their perfect fit, but their therapist is in California and they live in DC. And now they're like, does that mean I need to pay 35 to 40% more rent to get the help that I need and live in a different place that I'm not really comfortable with living in? Or do I just, me and my demons, get real cozy in this 1-bedroom apartment?
I opt for the second. No, honestly, like if I didn't have somebody to help me navigate the system, and like it sucks, it shouldn't be this way, but like that was actually a big part of like coming to find the one I had now too. I actually think I might have been like 2 years ago or something. I think I called you. I don't remember.
It wasn't me. It wasn't me.
Have you hooked me up with the current one?
We've had a talk.
But even that, like,
folks.
even that talk. And I had like, so I remember looking at some of them. I don't know. Even that was like just getting the ball rolling on like, okay, you had a list. Talk me through a little bit of the process. And then I was like, okay, I don't think I ended up going for any of those people. I don't want to say what institution my therapist is a part of on camera.
Yeah, no, I got you. Privacy is key.
Right? Yeah. But like even just like getting the ball rolling and having somebody, and for me also being like, I want to do this, and also saying it out loud to somebody, like saying it out, being like, just like, I gotta get back in therapy, man.
Yeah.
Made it kind of like real for me in a way that I think it hadn't been for a while.
Yeah. When do you think the switch happened from you being forced into therapy? At what age were you forced into therapy and that came to an end? And at what age did you say, okay, I need this, even though I hate this thing?
Yeah, right. And like even though I like hate this thing, like like say it sounds like you're saying it like, you know, like a little blithely, a little pithily. Like I tell my therapist all the time, I'm I'm so annoyed by you right now. Like I'm like, yeah, I know you're right, but like it's annoying. It's annoying.
It's nice to have that freedom though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? And it doesn't feel like a personal thing. Like I don't have beef with this guy. Right? He's a great guy. I also just like being right.
Yeah.
Right?
Just in general.
So having somebody who's like very like gently and very considerately asking questions to the point where like I come to the conclusion where I'm like, God damn it. Yeah, I guess I'm not right. Right? Like, I don't know, even that was like stressful. Wait, what was I talking about? You were talking about like the point when it happened.
What point did you transition from therapy is forced onto me and I hate this to I now need therapy?
Even some days I'm like, I hate this. Yeah.
The hate doesn't change. It's just you realize the value of what you were given.
Yeah, I mean, definitely like a gradient. More, it was like coming out of college and like transitioning to that time. I'd say like the real, if I had to pick a moment in time, it was sitting in the doctor's office in New Hampshire, and my doctor's like, what is going on? What, like, why do you have this old person disease? Why is your blood pressure messed up? Why is your skin so bad?
Yeah.
Like, why aren't you sleeping? Like, and having them just be like, I don't even know what's going on in your life, and I can tell you're doing poorly right now.
They can just see it.
Yeah, right. So I think that was really, if I had to pick a time then, but it was also, it was like kind of like as I was like leaving school and then being like, oh shit, now I'm imbued with all this responsibility for taking care of myself.
That's Did you ever get on the phone with your parents about it, or did you just keep it to yourself?
Yeah, I definitely did. Then I did, and then again, as I kind of came to like 3 years ago. And also, I mean, that's another thing too that also like, I guess about like my process. I think I should have kept a list. I think I said like 4 specific concepts that have like been my process of therapy so far.
I mean, hey man, it's education.
But also like another one. I mean, especially before I was like 27 and there was a period when I still did like the Obamacare thing. You can just be on your parents' health insurance. I was like, okay, I need this to happen. And even having, and I was obviously a lot older now than when I was when I first did it. And even having them just be like, okay, so here's lists. Your insurance can work for any of these people. Here are their specialties. Right?
Yeah.
And then being like, okay, so like you can call these different people and try to get involved with them. Like that was part of it too. And yeah. I mean, even now, when I was talking about like that credit card, like reimburse, where you have to like put one down and then be like,
that's
okay, and then they reimburse that card, but it does get held, right? And then they release that money as soon as your insurance is like, cool, we got it. He does still have insurance,
and they don't give you a time limit for how long that's going to take.
Yeah, right. And so I don't know, even like that's like they let me put like their credit card down for like that reimbursement thing, where they're like, okay, fine, like, and if it's because sometimes insurance is just doing insurance things, right? And they're stuck, and I'm like, all right, well, I don't necessarily want to just not have that money for like a month.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I wait for insurance to pay it back.
No, that really is the thing. Yeah.
So even like that's something that like made access easier, which I'm like definitely privileged to be able to have, and I don't know. I think when I think about how like difficult like my journey to therapy was, I mean, yeah, a lot of it like a very significant part is a result of significant privilege too. And so like anything that can take that really steep on ramp and just lessen it for people like without that too, like in navigating the system and figuring out insurance and figuring out who's gonna pay and figuring out what kind of therapy you want. And some people don't have the luxury to be like, okay, well I can't just go to 5 different therapists and schedule all these. Well, I figure out what kind of therapy works for me. Like even having somebody to talk that through is really important. So like, I don't know. Yeah, like I love what you guys are doing because like it takes that steep on ramp and just like makes it not that there's not a walk up, but accessible.
Yeah.
Right? Like accessible instead of like, all right, well, yeah, I can walk up a ramp. I can't climb a mountain right now. I got too much going on.
Yeah.
You know?
I think it's important to put people's stories out there because technically if anybody pays attention to the platform, it prepares them for, hey, when you're ready, this is what you're going to go through. And this is what everyone who's done it goes through across the board. It's like there's not enough of that. There's a lot of, I don't like the people who tell people to get therapy.
Just get therapy. It's like that Love Simon bullshit that like just come out of the closet and everything will be fine. Everybody will love you and accept you for who you are. And this is a Disney movie.
No.
Shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
No, it's not that simple.
It's not.
And it often sucks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. No,
the only way to build muscle is to rip muscle, though.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, that's the only way to do it. And when we have a better way, we'll let you all know.
Yeah.
Right now, this is what we got.
And even with that thought process, unfortunately, there's so many people who are telling people you need therapy, even if it's in a joke, even if it's on social media, even if it's like insults.
In like a pejorative way, like seek therapy, whatever. You see that comment on Instagram.
A moment like this is why you need therapy. And it's like, all right, if that person gets therapy, are you going to be willing to change with them?
Yeah. Yeah.
We all know the answer to that.
Yeah.
You wanted them to get therapy and you wanted them to get better, but what happens when they realize you're a part of the core problem? Yeah. And them getting better means they get better without you. Yeah. And at a certain point, they may need to remove you from their lives because you are the source. Yeah. Are you going to celebrate that?
No, probably. I mean, I feel like I've heard stories of people even being like, we shouldn't be doing that. Like, I don't know. Often I hear, I've heard like more stories of like women in really toxic relationships with really toxic men who like when they start going to therapy and then they're like, oh, I can't be with this guy anymore. And the guy's like, what are you talking about? Like, just crazy quack. Like, don't listen to him. Like, that's crazy. You're fine. Like, don't go. Like,
in life, you get what you pay for.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what it is.
Yeah. So that's part of it too. Like, I don't know. Like, if nothing is changing in your life from therapy, there's probably 2 things going on. Yeah. Probably like you just don't have a good, effective relationship with your therapist, and this has been something that's hard for me to realize about myself, which is like I don't know, something like, oh, I've tried nothing and I'm all out of ideas. You know what I'm saying? Like sometimes also like I'm not actually doing the work, and that doesn't mean it has to be perfect, but it does mean you have to progress.
I don't know if you remember when I said this on Thursday when we did the Told the Truth Thursday.
Yeah, a couple weeks back.
I just want effort.
Yeah.
That's all I ask for. That's it. I don't I've never wanted perfect. I think there was a time in my life where I thought perfect was what you need in order for things to get done. And then I started to realize what perfect would do to people in the room. Perfect is what leads to people not being able to get it done because there's too much pressure. Perfect is what happens when the thing that's easy all of a sudden becomes difficult. Perfect is what happens when it's supposed to be simple, but somehow simple becomes complicated. And there's 5 people standing over one pot and there's one spatula. And so it's like, don't ask for perfect anymore. If anything, just ask for effort. And effort is one of the easiest things you can measure because it's, hey, did you do something you didn't do yesterday?
Yeah, you know.
Yeah.
You can tell when you're avoiding it. When I was like, I'm going to therapy, I'm good. Like, no, like I do think at the time. It took a while. Like, it took a while. That reminds me, one of the an ex that I haven't talked to in years. Mm-hmm. We didn't even have like I don't know how she feels about me now. I know. But as we were breaking up, I don't know. We're talking. This is years ago. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. She was also just like telling me some hard truths. And
about yourself.
And I think I could be like, wow, okay, I actually do trust that you see me. Mm-hmm. I actually do trust that you know me.
Yeah.
And like, if you're saying this, it's because like you're seeing it.
Yeah.
And they said, you're so concerned with showing up perfect that you don't bother to show up whole. And I was like, oh shit. Ow, I'm gonna remember that forever. I'm gonna remember that forever.
That's a special delivery.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a special delivery.
You're so concerned with showing up perfect that you don't show up whole.
Was that said in a calm, even voice?
Yeah. Damn. Oh yeah. Yeah, big time. Fuck. No, and it's like they were right. I don't know. Maybe that's another thing about like my journey. Like I actually probably, it was a while ago, but like definitely, it's something that I've like thought about. It's not like something I think about every day, but every like once in a while, especially when like I can tell like, oh wow, like I'm not putting in the work, and like I'm like, well, if it's not gonna be perfect, then like whatever, I'll just phone it in. It's like, no, you can bring that messiness, right? But you do have to, like the effort, like what you're saying, like that, and when that's part of it, and when it's not. I think one of the things I also really value about my therapist now is and that doesn't feel like contentious, but like. And I was saying this way back, but just like my therapist is like, James, you're not mad about this thing, and I'm like, yeah, I am. Well, I'm mad, and having a therapist who I really trust, and they're like, James, you're mad about this. This is how it's coming out. Right, I don't want to get it like super specific on camera, but like just having somebody that when they can tell you something that you don't want to know is true, and then I don't know, there's something about hearing it, and it's a long process of getting to that point where you can trust what somebody says, right, and not just like, oh well, you don't know me and you don't know what I've been through, Yeah, it's like having somebody that can tell you something that doesn't necessarily feel good. I think that's something a lot of people who like haven't done it is like don't realize like that's part of therapy also. It's like it's not all supposed to feel good. Right? Like it's not all supposed to feel good.
Solutions suck.
Some of it's gonna feel bad.
Solutions suck.
Right? Yeah. Like, because then all of a sudden there's all this change that has to happen. Oh my God, but I'm tired.
Yeah.
Right? Like, but I'm tired and I don't want to. Like, it's not always gonna feel good. But like also a lot of the worthy stuff in life, like, I don't know. I love hiking. I bitch and moan up every single mountain I've ever climbed. Right? Like, this sucks. Like, I'm so tired. Like, oh my God, let's just camp here. Like, fuck it. Screw the Forest Service and their rules. Fascists. It's like, no, we walk to the top. It's not like you're not gonna love it when your legs are burning. Yeah. You're gonna love it drinking a beer on top of the mountain.
And on the way back down.
Yeah.
It's actually harder to go down a mountain though than it is to go up a mountain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's some fun metaphorical applications of that to therapy too. Right? You know the garage metaphor? Did we talk about this ever?
No.
All right. So if I had to talk about therapy, where I think a lot of people do 3 days of therapy and then they're like, fuck it, I'm done. Right? Like after they go through all those barriers that we talked about to actually get in. Yeah. Right? And even if it's like the right type of therapy, even if the therapist is actually a good relationship, I've still seen people be like, well, nah, fuck it, I'm done. Right? And it's like, I just heard this metaphor, like therapy is like cleaning out your garage. And you spend the first, and I don't know, I would always like do this shit over like days, right? You spend the first portion of that just taking all these boxes off the shelves and this bag of leaves that somehow is in there with a mouse in it.
In the boxes.
And then you're taking them off and you're putting them in the driveway, right? And then as you go deeper and deeper, you're like, I don't even know what that is. First of all, don't know why I need it. Don't know who put it there.
Yeah.
Maybe I did. Yeah. Right? And okay, I'm taking it. I gotta take it out. I gotta take it out. I gotta take it out. And then you just have all this shit sitting on like in your yard, and it looks so much worse than when you started. Right? It looks so much worse. Then you got to go back in, clean the whole empty garage.
Yeah.
And then figure out, okay, now I'm gonna go back to this random pile of bullshit that feels embarrassing, and it's all this stuff, and I don't know what it is.
And now your neighbors see it.
And then my neighbors see it, and everybody can tell I'm a little bit of a mess right now.
Yeah.
And I have to figure out, okay, well, what do I keep? And how do I put it back? Because if I just fling it back in there, I'm just gonna have to clean the garage again, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, how am I gonna organize this? How am I going to put it back? What do I keep? What do I throw away? And where am I wrong about those things?
Yeah.
Right? Because like I am going to make mistakes as I'm putting everything back in the garage.
You're supposed to make mistakes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I am the proponent of go make a mistake.
Like it often gets worse, or it often at least like looks, when I say like gets worse, no, like it's progress, but like ostensibly like on the surface, like I had to clean whatever my garage. It wasn't perfect, right? But like, it wasn't terrible.
Yeah.
And now it's all on my front yard.
Yeah.
That looks worse.
In the grass.
In the grass. Yeah. And a storm's coming.
Yeah. Oh, now you got wet boxes to take back in. Oh God. So like now whatever is in the box is just gonna be spilling out anyway.
And I think people sometimes start that process and they're like, oh no, I'm good. I'm just gonna put it back in. Honestly, I knew where shit was before. I can work with my garage like the way it was, and that's fine. And I've done that for a long time. And don't come up in here telling me you have to clean my garage and fuck you.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like there's even like this like
it's my garage. I pay taxes.
Exactly, right? Don't tell me what to do with my fucking garage.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like not like going back to what we started this conversation with. Like there's got to be that if there's not intrinsic motivation, right? Yeah, it helps to have people showing you the way, but like you can't make somebody do it. Like ultimately somebody's got to choose.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to clean my garage. Ask your trusted people, do you know any good garage cleaning services? Can you help me clean these aspects of my garage? Are you comfortable even? You know, are you able to even do that, right? And it's like, no, all right, no, you need a garage cleaning professional. I'll help you with this. Right? Can't help you with that. Right?
Yeah.
Good to have those boundaries. But like it feels worse before it feels better. I think a lot of people don't expect that.
Yeah.
And then it makes them dip.
And even if you tell them that, telling them doesn't prepare them for it no matter what. So I think the best place to end this on, which you've heard me say this before, is in any situation that happens, whether it's good or bad, you got to remember and ask yourself, how much of this belongs to me? How much of this belongs to the other party? And at what point do I let this go and take what belongs with me into the sunset? Because like at the end of the day, whether it's accomplishments, whether it's failures, or it's a little mix of both, there are things that belongs to you, and there are things that belongs to the other person or thing you are interacting with. And you got to be able to let that shit go.
Yeah.
And if you don't, well, you're going to have to figure out how to burn some things. That's it.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying it's healthy, but life isn't healthy. It's not really that healthy of a thing. There's
100% chance of death.
Society's policies and laws want you to think life is supposed to be healthy, but what we're trying to find is harmony. That's why I tell folks like, hey, there's going to be heroes There's going to be villains, and there's a good chance that neither of those people are good or bad.
Yeah.
They just have this thing that they have to do, and no one gets to stand in the way of that.
Well, if I could, as we wrap, favorite author is Kurt Vonnegut.
Okay.
One of the reasons why there's no antagonist in any single book that he ever wrote, ever. It's just people stories. There's not like a protagonist and an antagonist. It's like, it's all a mess, right? And he just kind of leans into that. And did you ever read Brave New World? Yeah, right. You remember Soma?
Yeah.
In that. Yeah, so like this futuristic dystopian society, everybody would take this drug, Soma, that like lessens all suffering. And it's got no negative health effects. It's not going to shorten your life. It's not going to make your teeth fall out, like whatever, right? So you're like, okay, well, actually no physically negative effects, and it eliminates suffering and makes everybody feel good. And then, I don't know, just this main character is like, what was it? It was Bernard Marx or something, right? I feel like Marx was one of the.
Marx said a lot of stuff.
Not Jarl, right? But I think the character's name might have been Marx or something, which is a little bit on the nose.
Yeah.
Right? Come on, Aldous. All right, like we get it. It's an allegory for capitalism and alienation. You could have fucking picked any other name, right? Whatever. Still a good story. Right? It's like this him watching these people on Soma and like not falling into that, like it's just supposed to feel good all the time. Like it's just not life. Like it's something else, whatever you're calling it. Like I don't know what it is, but I can tell you what it isn't.
Yeah.
Right? And it's not life. And like there's gonna be this struggle. You're gonna look at all this shit on the front yard and be like, I wish I didn't do this. Some days I wish I didn't do this.
Yeah.
Right? But it's like, that's the only way to keep upkeep, keep everything in shape, actually move forward, deal with it.
I think, and this is something I learned in my prior life before doing the mental health advocacy. The worst thing you can do is get it done when everyone is cheering for you. Like there's a certain amount of work ethic and focus that you have to work towards that has nothing to do with whether people are paying attention to you or not.
Like doing it for you.
Yeah. And even if it's not doing it for you, sometimes it's doing it because it has to get done. In life, you're going to bump into things that, whether you realize it or not, it just has to get done.
Yeah.
No one's going to enjoy it. No one's going to pat you on the back. No one's going to say thank you. But getting it done meant there were 5 less things that were able to hurt you.
Yeah.
Or destroy what you've built and learn to love. So I'm big on that. Like, hey, I'm gonna get it done. I'm not waiting for the cheering. When the cheering happens, hey, appreciate y'all, but I got the stuff to do.
Yeah.
So
where was y'all when I was hungry?
Oh, you weren't shooting with me in the gym, huh? Crazy. That's crazy. Wow.
Back in my mom's crib, I was sleeping on the couch.
Oh man. Oh, there was a couch there. Crazy. Wow. Wow.
Must be nice.
Yeah. I was cutting up towels in the rags, okay? Yeah, I was there. Oh, you weren't? That's crazy. Oh, man, but I'm supposed to love you back.
Yeah.
So,
no, but doing it for you. That's the only way.
I was
ultimately.
I was reading this book. Sometimes I read. Depends on the day. Sometimes I read. And it was about this spy. And what happened was this spy had done work for free for 20 years. Worked for this country, got a lot of things done. And all of a sudden, the world got turned upside down. And someone was like, the person who's in the lead with the most information, where are they? They need to share their information with everyone because that's only right by society. We're supposed to be a unit. And in my head, I was like, nah, that person sacrificed 20 years of their life. No one was paying them. No one was encouraging them. They stuck to the mission. And the mission didn't have a purpose until the world turned upside down. So who do you think you are to demand things for something you didn't put in on? That's it. That's it.
Yeah.
It's so simple. So, I stay focused and I do what I got to do.
Some days.
Those are facts.
Some days.
Nah, those are facts. But right, this has been another episode of Mental Health Monday. Appreciate you guys for pulling up. Thanks to the homies. My boy, you guys don't get his name because we keeping it a secret. Low profiles. Hey, this has been great. See y'all later. Like, subscribe, comment. All right? Peace.
Thanks, guys.
Of course. Thank you for pulling up, man. I really appreciate that. We right on time.
Of course.
I was looking at the clock. I was like, oh, we right on time.
Professional, yeah.
Perfect.
He was for that.
Perfection.
Appreciate it.
Just perfection.